My son asked me what the difference was between beatniks and hippies. Mostly he asked school-related questions. Questions about free electrons, dangling participles, the value of X. Mostly I got nothing. This was a breath of fresh air, and right in my wheelhouse. Having spent time in both camps, I felt uniquely qualified to answer. I grew up in Woodstock, New York, and naturally became a hippie. But before that, my one ambition in life was to be a beatnik.
Beatnik bongo. Dropping some lines around a bongo beat. Hat full of change upside down in the street. Maybe I'll get enough to eat tonight. On the road, on the road, on the road.
I was inspired to that goal by The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis, a TV show that ran from 1959 to 63. It introduced us to Warren Beatty, Tuesday Weld, Michael J. Pollard, and most of all to Bob Denver, who played Dobie's beatnik sidekick, Maynard G. Krebs. I wholeheartedly embraced Maynard. I wore old sweatshirts and chinos, even had a beret for a while. I did my best to like jazz. I bought a Thelonious Monk album. I even played it once. Well, most of it. Reading poetry in coffee houses was a big part of beatnik culture. I was too young for coffee, and truthfully, my taste for poetry never evolved beyond the limerick. Hippies outnumbered beatniks, but the main difference was hippies became politically active. Beatniks were a source of amusement, a curiosity. Hippies were a curiosity as well, but when they took to the streets in protest of the war in Southeast Asia, they quit being an amusement. They became a threat to the status quo. This put them in the crosshairs. I pointed out to my son that Nixon and his cronies back in the 60s realized that they couldn't make it illegal to protest against the war. They hatched the plot to associate hippies with marijuana and then to heavily criminalize the weed. This gave them the opportunity to arrest the leaders of the opposition and break up their organizations. Associating hippies with marijuana was about as hard as associating koala bears with eucalyptus leaves. Getting the weed declared a Schedule I narcotic, right up there with heroin, took some doing, but all the president's men pulled it off. Never mind the fact that you can smoke your body weight in ganja and not suffer any long-lasting ill effects. Granted, there are some short-term inconveniences associated with excessive dope smoking. You may, for example, forget your locker combination and have to write it down on the locker next door and get caught doing so by Mr. Runge, the school principal. And then you may have to scrub down all the lockers in front of the student body. You might also experience a noticeable drop in grades in all subjects other than art. Or so I've been told. I explained to my son how the stiff penalties on pot paid an unexpected dividend to the war machine. Simple possession, 5 years in prison. The judge often gave the offender the choice. 5 years in the big house, 3 years in the army. They often took the military choice. This provided the war machine with a constant source of cannon fodder. I waited for my son to ask a follow-up question. He did. Name 3 characteristics of rock and roll music. I didn't see the connection, but I was eager to have another question I could field. 1. Rock and roll never forgets. 2. We built this city on rock and roll. And 3. Rock and roll is here to stay. I noticed he was taking notes. It dawned on me what was happening. He was interviewing me as part of his history class. I felt old and defeated.